stepping inside the principal's office, building community with the right synergy. Stepping.
A lot of times this topic comes up with leaders it's either met with
it's a safe place to be. Well, leaders can be free. Come learn new lessons.
gap is closing.
Feel free to ask a question. The principal's office. Inside the principal's office.
I mean, are you guys principals or middle school students?
Inside the principal's office.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Inside the Principal's Office. I'm so excited to be here with you, and I have some amazing guests with me. Your screen is not messed up. There are just 3 boxes. I know that we typically have 4, but unfortunately, my amazing co-host, the second part of this, or maybe first part, I guess depending on how you look at it, this dynamic duo, Michael McWilliams, unfortunately cannot be here. An emergency came up for him. So I'm flying solo, but it's okay because I am in some amazing company. My name is Charles Williams, as I mentioned, one half of this show, also an educational administrator up in Chicago for the Chicago Public Schools, the host of the Counter Narrative podcast, and the founder of CW Consulting, where right now I'm sitting in Oklahoma because I just finished off 2 breakout sessions and a keynote for the spring shift hosted by one of our former guests on the show, Katie Kinder. But you know about me. You're not here just to see me. You are here to connect with our guests, whom I have 2 amazing individuals that I've had the pleasure of connecting and sharing space with. We have Brandon Perry and Dr. Sam Fecich. So I'm going to kick things over to you, Sam. Tell us a little bit about who you are, and we'll bring it back to the show itself.
Yeah, sure. Hey, everyone. I'm excited to be inside the principal's office tonight. My name is Dr. Sam Fecich, and I'm an associate professor at Grove City College in Pennsylvania. There's an awesome outlet mall, but an even better education department. We train teachers each and every day to be change makers in the world. So that is what I love doing, raising up the next generation of educators. And I'm also an author of a few books for new and aspiring educators, host of the EduMagic podcast, and also a speaker. So I absolutely adore new and future educators. So if you are listening tonight, you're in that, I would love to walk alongside you in that journey of being an educator of excellence.
Sam, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, and you do some phenomenal things. And thank you for allowing me to be a part of some of that. I appreciate it. Brandon.
Yeah, hello everybody. Great to see you. My name is Brandon Perry. I am been teaching now for 12 years. Currently teach 6th grade humanities. Totally a middle school guy. Spent my whole career so far in middle school. I love it. I also do a lot of coaching. So right now I coach soccer in the fall, and we're currently in the spring lacrosse season. So busy time, got lots of away games, had a few games this week. But yeah, I love coaching almost as much as I love teaching, but just a, love for teaching. It's my passion. And I've started connecting with more people over the past couple of years. I went to one of Charles's sessions a few summers ago, virtually, which was awesome. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. I have my wife and I have been working on a children's book. It's in build mode right now. So she illustrated all the images with watercolor, and I wrote the story in the manuscript, and it should be coming out here hopefully within the next couple weeks, couple months.
Awesome. Yeah, Brandon, I appreciate. I remember like us starting to connect, and I was like, I gotta get him into something. And
Yep.
What a perfect way. Here we are talking about teacher retention, and a lot of times, and we wanted to break that mold, right? A lot of times it's exactly that. Leaders sit around and we're talking about what's best for our staff, and I'm like, well, we have to model those things that we're talking about and bringing people in and having a conversation with the ones who are directly impacted. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, of course.
So if you are not familiar with the show is pretty simple. We try to keep things lighthearted, just 3 of us sitting around chatting, talking ed, talking shop. And so it's going to be pretty simple as we investigate two different questions, and we close out with ideas that stick. And as I referenced earlier, what we're talking about today is a very important topic, is this idea of teacher retention. We see all over the place. In fact, just today on my way home, we were having a conversation about the gaps of teachers here in Oklahoma City educational system. And the question is, what's going on? What can we do about it? And so that is what we're hoping to explore. We're not going to solve it today. Just if you came here ready for that, we're not going to solve it, but we're going to explore, we're going to talk about it, and hopefully make our mark in this space. So without further ado, let's jump into question number 1.
Inside the Principal's Office Discussion Question 1. It is estimated that approximately 16% of teachers in the United States turn over each year. What do you believe are the biggest factors impacting teachers' decisions to remain or relocate?
Wow, that's a bigger than should be number. And I'm very curious, especially as we're having this conversation, right? And I love the fact that we're going to talk about remain or relocate. So we're looking at both sides here. So Sam, I'm going to kick it over to you first.
Sure. So yeah, 16%, that is a big number of teachers leaving the profession or relocating or staying wherever they are. But that turnover is huge. And I don't know the exact numbers for how many years a teacher has been in like 1 year versus 5 years and then, quitting their job. No one goes into education thinking, oh, I'm only going to be doing this for 5 years. They go in it thinking, I'm going to make an impact in the life of a child for the next 20, 30 years. And to be honest, when I was looking at this question, I couldn't help but think the profession has changed in the past 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Whenever I started, it's not the same profession. And I asked myself, why would someone come into teaching now? I mean, even with the events that happened this week, why would somebody want to be an educator? I think some of those reasons still stay true of I want to make an impact in the life of a child. A child's going to make an impact on my life as well. Teaching, having that light bulb moment, all those types. And I don't think those reasons have changed. I think reasons why people relocate or remain can be related to support that they have from their administration, feeling safe in their space, just like we want all of our students to feel welcome, safe, valued, and supported and seen in our classrooms. We got to feel that too as teachers. So I know that's just tip of the iceberg with that response, but I've been doing a lot of reflecting on why would someone want to enter the teaching field in this type of environment. So that's kind of where I was thinking about with that question.
Now that's great points brought up. Brendan, I'm curious what you have to say.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I've thought a lot about this over the past few years, and I have actually, I'm at my 4th school now within 12 years, and none of that is for a reason of wanting to move. My wife is in healthcare, and so she was in grad school, and we moved around a lot. She went to different facilities, and we finally settled, back where we're from, and we just had a kid last fall, so we're kind of like locked in now for a longer period of time, which feels good. But yeah, so it's been interesting seeing different schools and hearing from different people. And it's something I've thought a lot about, especially, with the pandemic. And we saw such a big change when that occurred. And with people, number one, just leaving the profession altogether. And number two, we saw a lot of relocations, people starting to question, am I living where I want to live? We saw a lot of movement out of cities and more into rural areas potentially. And so just a lot of moving pieces going on with a lot of factors at play. And so I've been, curious, what's going on. And especially now that we're, kind of things in that regard of people relocating for those reasons are starting to calm down, and thinking about, what are the root causes of people wanting to leave or wanting to stay. And, I think from my experience and talking with colleagues over the years and, what I value, I think it connects with what Sam was saying. I think one is just when you're in a place that really promotes that culture of well-being, it, both physically and mentally, you have that desire that you're in a place where you belong and you're safe and you want to be there. and you feel comfortable to go to your leaders and ask questions and share feedback. And just that culture is, conducive to that environment of wanting to stay. And I think the second piece is, as Sam mentioned, teachers come in with this inherent passion of wanting to do great things. And I think when leaders have that magic key to find ways to ignite that passion and keep that passion lit over the years, I think that's a gift. And I think when that can be cultivated, people have that buy-in to where they want to stay. They're excited, even in the tough times, in the busy days, they're excited because they're pursuing things they're interested in. They have that support from their leaders. So I think that's a big piece to it.
Thank you. Yeah, you both bring up some great points. And Sam, you mentioned something that I didn't think about until you mentioned this, is that, unfortunately we see, and I think a good friend, Elijah, posted this like kind of graphic about the reality of school shootings like in our country today, and just how, commonplace that they've become. It seems almost every day I'm receiving some type of alert that something is happening in some part of the country. And so often now these are happening at schools. And so I agree. I think maybe if we had this conversation, 5, even 10 years ago, I don't know if that would have been a conversation, right? Am I feeling safe going into school?
Right.
Am I going to make it home to see my families? And so absolutely. And, Brandon, this idea that you mentioned, it goes above, and I like Sam dropped in the chat, right? It's not just a gene day, right? It's how do we build these systems, right? It's not just, hey, guys, I bought you pizza, right? It needs to go above and beyond. And as I was reflecting on this question, one of the things that I think we were hit with this harsh reality is that, how do we respond to the situation? And I don't think we're doing a very good job of that, because I know even within our schools, when these gaps exist, right? A teacher calls off, there's a shortage of subs or whatever it may be, immediately we're looking on who can we pull, who can we place into those positions. And then what we're starting to see is a lot of people doing jobs that they were not intended to do. They're not trained to do. They're not equipped to do. And so people are becoming extremely burnt out, extremely tired. In fact, one of the sessions I talked about today was operating in that zone of genius, right? So if you're being pulled and say, hey, I need you to do this, or I need you to cover that, or right, very, very quickly, it's like, that's not why I'm here. And I walk out drained. I'm not living within my purpose. I'm not living within my passion. And very quickly, it's like, is this what I want to do, right? And so we continue to perpetuate the very issue that we're trying to combat. I don't have an answer for it, right? Those spots need to be filled. We don't have the luxury, right, to be able to say, hey, you know what? So-and-so is not in their cubicle today. It'll be okay. That data will be entered later. Like, no, there are students in that classroom. Somebody needs to be in there. They need an education. And so
Right.
I don't have an answer for that. So yeah.
You can't be like, sorry, third grade is not my zone of genius today. Can we just move on to somebody else? Yeah, that's not an option.
They'll be okay. Give them a worksheet or some crayons and
Put a TED Talk on, right?
Yep, exactly.
So before we jump into this next one, I just want to ask, we talked a little bit about the why they are, or teachers are, why they're leaving. And we touched a little bit on retention. Is there anything where, in your experience, right, that retention piece where teachers are like, I've been here forever, right? I think in some of the conversations I've had before, when I visited China, it was an incredible experience. One of the things that surprised me the most is that most of the educators I spoke to said, well, I've been teaching at this school 20, 30 years. And I was like, so you haven't just been in the profession, you've been at the same space? And so as I explored, right, they talked about things like, well, they only really teach half the day, right? The other half the day is used for planning and assessing and, doing all of those things, right? And when they were like, well, when do you do that? I was like, you get maybe a prep period and then you do it at home, right? Like, so I'm curious, in your experience, what have been some of the things, the factors that have said, those teachers are like, hey, I'm here for the long haul. I'm enjoying the work that I do. And I'll just open it up to either one of you.
Yeah, I think time is a big one, and you kind of touched on it there. And to me, I think time is like the most valuable resource, in a school community, and it doesn't come easy, especially on those days where you're scrambling and you're like, hey, can you fill in for third grade here? I need a teacher. And so I think, tying back to your point of visiting some of those, international schools, I think when there's intentionality about how time is structured and built in, and as hard as that is with the scheduling, I know from the leadership side, that's like, a jigsaw puzzle within itself. And so I think when that is built in ways, and you have the time to catch your breath, eat your lunch, go to the bathroom, grade, plan, prep, assess, all of those kind of like essential things that go into the practice. I think that's a big piece. And I think, that factors into that well-being element where you kind of feel like you're not, drowning, or you're not just treading water, you're above water. And so I think, to me, that's something that I think a lot about is time and how to manage it and where to find it, and scheduling wise when we give feedback for it. So I think that's a big one.
Thank you.
I've been writing some notes so I don't forget anything. So first, I think it starts with leadership, and leadership does not have to have a title. It can be someone like assistant principal, but also be like a department chair, something like that, or even a colleague as a leader. Just having that supportive space to listen, to receive that feedback, and to acknowledge it, to value it. I think is very important. And going into different schools from a supervisor perspective, faculty who have been there for a while share that their administration listens, and they value their feedback on professional development to different programs that they're implementing. So they really like pilot stuff with the teachers. The teachers have like a say and a buy-in. They just don't go out and buy XYZ technology. They have teachers try out different things. They get their opinions because they're the ones that are going to be using the tools. And I know we've all done the Jeans Day on Friday, like once a month or something, but there are some schools out here that do it every week, which has been really nice. So like teachers can kind of count on, oh, I can dress down, it's okay. So that's like an every week thing. And then like having a mindfulness Wednesday activity where they wear like one of those really nice, like be kind shirts, or, those ones with a positive message on it. But they also have a big assembly in the morning where they all just have a positive focus for the day. So that not only helps the students, but also the teachers. And I've noticed since I supervise a lot of special ed placements, some life skills students or other students have their own like little coffee shops at schools where they can deliver snacks to teachers. And I know I love a 2:00 coffee. I'm always ready for one. But that's just like, thanks for, and that's a great life skill for a student, but it's also like a nice little pick me up. I know it's small, but it's appreciated, and just having outside of the box ideas, I think is very important for administrators.
Thank you. And, before we jump into the next question, one of the things that I forgot to mention is that if you're watching the show, let us know. Swing by, say hello, drop a question for us or a response. In fact, we have a response from one of our viewers, and this is great. So Heather, thank you so much for being here. And what Heather's talking about is that autonomy to have some fun, right? Sometimes we feel like we have so many demands on us. It's like, well, I have to teach all of these things. We got to cover. But where's that opportunity to be authentically me and in that space? And so, Heather, thank you for bringing that up and creating, right, those fun spaces. I think we as leaders need to be able to do exactly that, to say, hey, right. And I used to tell my teachers this all the time. Here are the skills, here are the standards that they need to know. Like that journey that you take, that's up to you. Right? I don't care as long as it's appropriate, right? How you're going to get there, right? Be as creative, make sure that it is catered as much to you and to your students, because that's the only way that you're going to get there, and it's going to be meaningful and lasting. So thank you, Heather, for dropping that. Before we jump into question number 2, one of the things that we're engaging here, right? We're talking about reflections. We're talking about celebrating. We're talking about these things that we as leaders can do. In fact, that's the focus on question number 2, which are perfect segues into this book that we wrote for this show, right? Oh, I had to do a little extra. Mac's not here with his copy. So feel free. You can pick that up at Amazon. It is one of our babies here. And it's a simple read, just a 40-week read, so that we broke things down to say, hey, an opportunity for you to sit back, reflect, do some of that personal work, so that way you can feed it into others. But before we jump in, speaking of books, Sam, I think you have a book that just dropped.
I do. I two that kind of just dropped November and just in March. So the first one that dropped in November is Crush It from the Start, 50 Tips for New Teachers. It is a quick read, but it's also very applicable with activities for you to do. And it's a larger book size, kind of like workbook size. So you can write in there, you can journal and all that good fun stuff. And then the other one is Digital PD for Educators. And that one was co-written with Matt Woods. And let me go back to the first one, the 50 Teacher Tips. That was co-written with Casey Jakubowski, Kevin Leichtman, and another Matt, forgetting his name, Matt Rhodes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, there are a lot of Matts in my life. And so that was co-written with them. And then the other one, Digital PD for Educators, talks about getting started by being a connected educator on lots of different platforms. We go through lots of different platforms, the pros, the cons, what they are, and then just brainstorming, okay, what are some things that I can post and what are some ways I can get started? So that was a fun one too. So thank you so much for the shout out.
Of course. And Matthew Woods was also a former guest on the show, so it's nice, right? As another Matthew would say, the power of connections, right? You're right, a lot of Matthews.
I love
it. And Brandon, I know that you referenced yours earlier. When can we expect that one?
Yeah, so I have a children's book coming out. It's called Otis and Clara. Hopefully, within the next month or so, it's in the production phase. My wife actually was the illustrator, so this was some of the this is actually the cover, original cover. So it's watercolor. It's a story about a shy and timid bulldog who is nervous about an upcoming field trip. His class is going to climb a mountain with their teacher, Mr. Barker, and he has a cardinal named Clara who comes and helps him find his confidence and courage on the weekend and encourages him to step out of his comfort zone. And he goes on the field trip, and has a great adventure. So hopefully it's coming out soon. It's in the build phase, and it'll be on Amazon and Barnes & Noble when it loads. And I'll have it on my Twitter page. And so, I'm excited for it to go live soon.
Yeah, I love that. I love the name Mr. Barker, and I'm positively sure that it's going to be amazing.
Wow, that was great, guys. Let's see if we get another one.
All right, so let's jump into question number 2.
Inside the Principal's Office Discussion Question 2. School leaders in different levels, positions, and roles have varying degrees of influence and ability to make changes. What are some actionable ideas for leaders of all levels to improve teacher retention?
And this is a great question. I know we touched about this a little bit, and Sam, you pointed out that school leaders don't necessarily mean the administrators in the building. So Brandon, I'm going to kick it over to you first and let you start us off.
Yeah, so I think, thinking about this question, one thing that initially comes to mind is, first of all, the year itself is a marathon, not a sprint. And I think sometimes we get sucked into like sprint mode and it just gets, hectic and overwhelming. And so I think always remembering that we're in a marathon here, it's a long year, let's pace ourselves, be smart about it. But thinking about some, kind of action steps, one thing I've valued kind of at schools I've been at is this idea of kind of removing something from a teacher's plate. As the year goes, it's almost like inherently happens that our plate just gets fuller and fuller and fuller, and we get all these extra things added on. And so it's really nice when I think a leader, can acknowledge and see that and say, hey, let's think about, is there any way we can free up and, take you off break duty on Wednesdays, or, let's open this space up. I think just something little like that, where we have that time granted back to us and taken something off of our plate. And I think that gives us the chance to go back into the things we're passionate about, or get back to our grading, or, the things that we're trying to, all the stuff we're trying to get done. And I think, with that is this idea of flexibility, trying to, make sure that, we're all humans and people, and this idea of authenticity and vulnerability. And so being flexible when life circumstances come up. I have a baby, who's 18 months old. And so, in daycare, and we're in the, every 2 weeks, he's got the cold or the sniffles. And so it's really helpful when, leaders are understanding of that and realizing that, that's a part of life. And, I don't have to worry about, missing a morning or missing the day, things like that. And I think one thing that I really value is this idea of like individualized and personalized professional development. I think trying to find ways where leaders can differentiate how they're leading with their teachers. We talk a lot about how teachers differentiate with our students. And I think when we have leaders that are able to connect on really a personal level and really kind of cater to, where we're trying to grow and get better, number one, it builds that idea of belonging. And I think, when we can pursue what we're passionate about and we can be given the tools and the reins and the resources for it, it's empowering, and I get excited about that. And so I really like that idea. And, I know Matt, who wrote The Power of Connections.
Matthew Joseph.
He talks a lot about, personalized and individualized PD. And so, that's something as a teacher I really appreciate.
Thank you. Some powerful points there. And Sam, I know you were dropping some things in the chat. Feel free to jump on in.
Yeah, I don't want to forget about anything. So I just write things in as they come to mind. So I think the first thing, whenever I read this question, what came to mind was a little reel that I saw from an educator who posted something like they were checking their email, and it was like, admins, please do not send me an email at 8 a.m. saying we need to meet after school and not tell me why, because I'm going to stress about it all day. Right? I think we've all gotten that email, right? Just tell me what's going on, because I'm going to think everything and all the things, right? It's probably something very small. So I would say be clear in your communication. If a meeting can be an email, awesome. Do the email, right? People's time is valuable. And so let's respect and value that. And I had 2 reflection questions I was thinking about with this that admins could ask themselves, like, whenever you are a teacher, think about all the different teachers in the stages of which they are, family life and where they are in their career. What did you need during that time in your life as an educator, a 3rd-year teacher or a 12th-year teacher with an 18-month-old baby? What did you need when your family was first starting from your administrators? And be that admin that you needed in your life at that time. So whether that looks like meeting with a group of teachers or small group or one-on-one at the beginning of the year and saying, hey, what are your goals for this year? And how can I support you getting there? Is there anything you need to be aware of? How can I support you throughout this school year? Mm-hmm. Just seeing where people are, having that authenticity, that vulnerability, and being a human is so important. It really goes a long way, having that understanding of, I've been there. I know what it's like to have a kid in daycare and snots every 2 weeks, right? And I'm getting whatever they're getting. Yeah, that's totally fine. And having the teacher know that they're not alone, that they're not experiencing this alone, and that you're going to walk alongside them and support them the best that you can. So thinking about who you needed as an administrator, reflecting with your teachers, what are some goals you have? And I think that could speak to about the professional development, differentiated professional development. Like, I heard about this new AI thing. I want to learn more about that. Or I really like using STEM in my classroom, or I want to do this other thing, whatever it is, like, help support them, because that's a passion area. That's their zone of genius, right? Bringing it back and just supporting them and learning more. Because as teachers, that's one of the great things we get to do. We get to keep learning and growing. And I still believe that teaching is the best profession on the planet. It truly is. So let's keep our teachers in it and let's support them the best way that we can.
Absolutely. I remember at one point, Sam and we were exploring some opportunities for that personalized learning, and how do we document it? How do we capture it? Because that's something that I was trying to do, to say, hey, you know what, let's just each of you take your own journey, right? So you could identify a need and learn and grow in that area. There are some things that we need to do collectively as a school, but the biggest bang for your buck is going to be to figure out what do you need and how can you learn and grow. And I also love the fact, that we brought up being a human. Just recently, we had a PD day. We were maybe an hour or two or so into it. And as I was walking, a teacher came up to me and she's bawling. And I said, oh my God, like, what's wrong? Are you okay? And she said, I just got a call. They're putting my dog down. I don't know what to do. And I was like, you leave. Like, that's what you do. And she just looked at me like stunned. Like, I was like, no, go. Like, what we're doing here, we could always do later, right? If I ask you or if I force you to stay, you're not going to be any good. Nothing we do is going to hit. And so it's wasted time anyway. So as an admin, I had to make a decision. Do I send you home, right? And you go and spend those final moments with your dog. And that means so much more to you, right? And then you could grieve and, have closure. Or do I force you to sit in a meeting, right? Either way, no learning is happening. So I definitely believe like we need to make sure that we are treating our people first and foremost as people, right? As humans, as the human beings that they are. So yeah, thank you so much for all of that feedback.
And I'm sure that teacher's going to stay now. That's something that sticks with somebody. And that means so much. That's a retainer activity. That's what someone's going to remember during their evaluation or whenever they're giving you feedback. That sticks with it more than any PD, just knowing that they are seen, heard, valued, and appreciated.
Totally agree with that. Yeah. Especially from a teacher, as a teacher thinking about that, that's awesome. I mean, it's, when those moments come up, I still even have it now, sometimes when my son's sick and I'm thinking like, I don't know, like, I was just out last month. Like, I can't tell them again, I'm going to be out. What are they going to say? And so I think when, there's moments like that and you're like, hey, it's okay, just go. It deepens that trust in such an important way. And they're more comfortable and more open and more willing to go to you in those times of need. And it's just powerful. It's awesome.
So I will say this, right? And now I get to have a little bit of flexibility here because I no longer work for the company, so it doesn't really matter. But I used to do this thing with my staff because, again, I believed in certain practices and they didn't necessarily. But, for example, something as simple as like drop your swipe card on my desk, right? Like emergencies come up, like I've got you. Don't worry about swiping out, like I've got you. And right now, right, if my former company's HR are watching, like, sorry, like, but but we were doing what was best for our people. And Sam, I think one of the things you mentioned that I'm just reflecting on, that it is a retention activity. But I think that as leaders, we can't necessarily, and we shouldn't go into behaviors, go into situations thinking about like, what can I do to retain teachers, right? Because it doesn't seem as authentic. Like my reaction to that teacher in that moment, it was an immediate reaction because we as leaders have to begin living and breathing in these sorts of ideologies and mindsets. Then it will become natural, right? And then conversations around retention and things like that become minimal because that is just the creation, the climate that you have created, as opposed to trying to figure out, which is why we have pizza days and jean days, because I'm looking for something to make my teachers happy, as opposed to that just being ingrained as part of the culture. So, man, this has been a dynamic conversation. And every time, I know I say this almost every time we're together, I'm like, look, and I'm like, man, we're running out of time already, but it's been great. So as we get ready, we talked a little bit about why teachers are leaving or staying. We're talking about what admin can do. So we're going to get into our ideas that stick, the things that we can take away from this, our concrete ideas, and what you can do, right? If you're an admin watching this, if you're a teacher watching this and you're like, I need to go tell my admin something, right? Leave a little note or whatever in the suggestion box. So drop this here. In what ways will you check in with teachers or colleagues during the last quarter of the year? And as Sam mentioned, all three of us are in different roles, but we all have the power and the capacity to do exactly this. So one of my things right now is to reevaluate the meetings that we have left on the calendar. Now, we've had some shifts in policy or people within our building, and they're essentially every single meeting. We have meetings scheduled on Tuesdays and on Thursdays, different types of meetings, and they were like scheduled out with things to do all year long. And so one of the things that I want to do, now that some things have shifted a little bit, is to reevaluate those and ask, is that one necessary? And if it's not necessary, how can we utilize that time to connect, make it more authentic? I've been developing these listening sessions just to give teachers space to say, hey, I know you're upset. I know you're frustrated. I know that you're not okay with some of the things that are happening here. So let's create a listening session for you to share with administration your thoughts and ideas on how we can make these things better, right? And they were like, wait, what? You're doing, huh? Like, yeah, that's me. Like, I know I'm new to your space, but that is how I operate. That is how I roll. And so I'd rather take that time, right? We talked about time. And instead of just going through the motions, just doing something because it's on a schedule, to say, how can we better utilize this time and build those bonds and connections that are actually going to translate into something meaningful? So that's my idea of that stick. I think we're just going around the horn here. So Sam.
Yeah, so mine is communication is key. And whether that's communicating your meeting notes or your agenda or whatever that might be in a quick email, but also building connection pieces in your communication. So, for example, sending out like an encouraging word or an encouraging message like, hey, I noticed yesterday that you took time to, and or I noticed that you shared this, or whatever it might be. Notice something positive about the faculty in your space. We do that with our students, right? We notice something positive about them, we call home and we share that positive thing during the first week. Do that with your teachers too, but share that with them. They want to be noticed, valued, seen, and appreciated. That kind of has been my theme all night. But so communicate through either a quick email or a text or a voice memo. I love sending those to my student teachers. Like I just sent them this afternoon. Hey, I'm really proud of the way you taught that lesson. You differentiated. You were flexible on the fly. Awesome job. Keep it up. Just having that voice to it with intonation, because sometimes we read emails where the sender is in their angry voice, but they're not really. But we read it in that way, right? So whenever they get that feedback, they have my voice, they have my intonation in there. Also just, positive notes go a long way. Like pop a sticky note on someone's door, keep up the great work. I don't know, whatever it might be. It's just something that fills somebody's cup up with that communication piece. Be open with your communication, be transparent with your communication with your faculty and your staff. So those would be my ideas that stick.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it. Brandon.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this, and I think listening is such a big one, and the idea of continuing to build and strengthen trust. And so, I think looking at this from my lens is, my role as working with colleagues and teammates and members that we're entering that time of year where people might be moving or thinking about changing schools or just that kind of the springtime, and those conversations are starting to happen. And so, as a colleague for me, I think it's just important to, be able to listen and be someone who, can hear people talk through things and voice what they're going through. And, in ways where if I'm able to help advocate, if there's something they're concerned about and, they, want to go voice that, and I can help try to advocate with them and collaborate with them and be there with them. And so I think that's a big piece, from the colleague perspective. And for me, thinking about it for administrators out there, I think that's a big one. I think, when you're able to just really deeply listen and find ways to continue to strengthen that trust, it goes so much further than I think sometimes we realize. As a teacher, I notice, when school leaders and other teachers that I may not see that often, when we're able to have those organic and authentic and vulnerable conversations, it has such a larger impact than, we sometimes always realize, which is great and awesome. And I think that goes back into that creating those foundations of that culture of well-being and that idea of belonging for teachers. And it kind of all weaves and connects together.
Thank you so much. So this is one of my favorite parts, right? Because we talk a lot, kind of like, here are ideas that I have, but these are the takeaways. These are the things that we can go and do tomorrow, right? If you're in the building tomorrow, if you're on spring break, enjoy your spring break. Do it when you get back. So thank you so much. We are going to get ready to close out here. So I cannot say thank you enough. This has been a phenomenal conversation. Brandon, I'm glad that we're finally able to like join together in this space. And Sam, it has been a pleasure as always to reconnect with you.
Yeah, thank you.
For Heather and everyone else who has joined us tonight, thank you so much for being in this space. I hope that you'll reconnect with us next month. So on April 30th. So remember, new time, new place. We are doing the last Thursday of each month here at 7 o'clock. And we are going to talk about something that's pretty important. That has been the topic of many, many Twitter posts and everything else. That is the role of AI in education. Yeah, that is like a topic that is happening right now. And especially, right, as leaders, as like, how do we utilize this thing? Because I think it's like, cell phones and other things, we're like, oh, we don't want it. We want it to go away. I have a feeling this isn't going away anytime soon. So instead of fighting it, instead of pushing back, how can we embrace, how can we utilize it in order to learn and grow and move into the best selves that we can possibly be? And I have some amazing people joining me for that one. We have Debbie Tannenbaum from Tannenbaum Tech and Alfonso Mendoza from My EdTech Life, who graced a cover of an Ed magazine recently. So we have like some tech gurus in this space. I'm like, whoop, whoop, we're doing some things here. So please make sure that you join us next month for what is sure to be an amazing conversation. Again, Brandon, Sam, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you.
And to all of our guests, everybody who's joined us, we will see you next month. Have a wonderful evening. Enjoy your spring break, and we'll connect soon. Take care.
Thanks for watching and learning with us at SchoolRubric with educators from across the globe. For more access to articles, magazines, podcasts, live episodes, our international school directory, courses, and more, visit us at schoolrubric.org. Thank you.